Alright, yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's video takes place back when I was in high school, and funny enough, this was my grade 11th year when I was working at a restaurant. If you guys don't know, back when I was in grade 11, I worked in a couple restaurants because, well, they pay the best money. Like, think about it like this. When you work at a restaurant, you get paid tips, but at the same time, though, I was only a line cook, so I wasn't really making much money, but I was still making something. And I remember one of the reasons why I always worked at restaurants was because there was a lot of hot girls that work in the restaurant industry. For example, there were hot waitresses, and on top of that, there were hot hosts. And honestly, it just seemed like the best place for me because, well, if you guys don't know me well enough or you guys are new to the channel, I always like to do the devil's tango. So it just made the most sense to me. Anyways, I remember one time, it was like my second week there, and I was put on dish duty. I was basically putting dishes away and stuff, which honestly sucks, but at the same time, don't get me wrong, it wasn't that bad because cleaning dishes and sending them through a dishwasher is easier than it sounds. It's just really repetitive. But there was one part of being a dishwasher that was actually enjoyable, and that was getting all the dishes that I've already cleaned and putting them away back where they belong, at the front. If you guys don't know, basically, since I was in the kitchen, I got to occasionally go to the front and be able to put away some of the dishes that would need to be cleaning. And also, at the time when I would always put these plates away, I'd usually go up and end up flirting with the waitresses up there. And I remember one time when I was putting away dishes, I ended up seeing one of the waitresses and I ended up kind of flirting with her. I was like, hey, like, how you doing? Like, you're kind of cute. What are you doing back here? And she looked at me and said, stop, Bubba. I'm literally in the middle of my shift. And I remember this girl was like somewhat older than me, but she was really attractive, and there was no way I was not gonna flirt with her because, you know, if it walks and she's hot, well, I mean, why not? Anyways, I was flirting with her, and then one thing led to another. She ended up telling me, okay, Bubba, like, you need to relax. And then afterwards I said, oh, all right, well, whatever. And I ended up going back to my shift. After a while though, I remember one time she ended up coming to the back and she started talking to me and stuff as she was putting dishes away that need to be cleaned. And for some reason at first, it seemed like she didn't want to do anything with me, as if she had a boyfriend or something. But then after a while, as I didn't give her the attention she wanted, she started really wanting to talk to me more, which is one thing I learned. To all the guys out there that like a girl, if you give the girl too much attention in the beginning, they won't want to be with you. But if you give them just a little attention, then maybe over time, they will want you more. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. I have no idea. But anyways, going on with the story, I remember as this girl would flirt with me and stuff, I basically just kind of went along with it, ended up adding her on Snapchat, and then one thing led to another. We ended up kind of flirting over the phone. And me and her, it's not like the first time we've worked together. We've worked together a lot, and that's because we always did late night shifts. But this is where the story gets really juicy. I remember the next day when I went to school, I went into my keyboarding class because I had something to hand in. I know it sounds really dumb that I took keyboarding class, but you guys got to understand, when you're on the computer like 80% of your life, learning to type fast is one of the main things you got to learn. Because if you don't learn how to type fast, well, it's just purely embarrassing. But I remember I ended up learning how to type fast, and I had an assignment to hand in where it basically showed that I was able to type over 100 words per minute, which I can write over 100 words per minute. I think I can write over 132 words per minute. If I'm being exact, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But basically, I remember when I went up to my teacher and was handing this in, my teacher ends up looking at me, but he looked really sad. I have no idea why. So I remember I looked at him and told him, yo, like, listen, I know it's not like any of my business, but like, I was just wondering, are you okay? He ends up looking at me and saying, Bubba, I really don't want to talk about this right now. Thank you for your assignment. Yeah, thank you. But I remember as he was saying that to me, I was looking over his shoulder and I literally saw what was going on his phone. Apparently, his girlfriend was really not having a good time with him and basically ended up saying how basically she needed time to be with herself and kind of figure out some stuff and needs some time alone. Now, guys, I'm not dumb, okay? I'm gonna say this right now. When a girl says she needs time to figure out herself, that usually means, hey, I found a really hot guy and I really want to flirt with him a little bit and see where it goes. It never actually means they need to be alone, because what most girls need is attention, and no girl wants to actually be alone. So I remember I ended up telling him, dude, this sentence right here that your girl said, yeah, I'm gonna be for real with you, bro. She's seeing someone else. I remember my teacher looked at me in anger saying, why would you even say that, dude? Like, really? Are you really saying that to me right now? He ends up standing up and saying that I should leave the classroom, and I ended up leaving. But I'm gonna be straight up honest. When a bro needs help, a bro's gonna get help. And it's pretty obvious here that that girl was definitely playing with him. Like, no doubt. Now, you guys are probably wondering how the teacher is correlated to the actual story. Well, if you guys saw the title of this video, it makes sense later on. Basically, after that whole entire thing and me handing in my assignment, I remember I ended up going back home that day after school and basically started getting ready for work. And when I got ready, I ended up snapping this girl, and the girl honestly stopped kind of snapping me that I would hit up at the restaurant. I found it odd at first, but me knowing I was gonna go see her at the restaurant got me more excited to figure out what was going on. So I ended up getting my things, basically driving down there, and when I got there, I remember I saw her and she seemed really off. I have no idea why, so I remember I started talking to her saying, hey, like, yo, is everything good? And then she just told me, just nothing. Like, I don't really just feel like closing closing today. I don't know why. I just have this weird feeling. And after she said that, I told her, well, don't worry. If anything happens, just, talk to me. I'll be here for you. And I ended up going back. At this time, I remember basically me and her, we were basically together the whole entire night because we were both doing closing shift for the restaurant. And basically, it was really weird because I remember at one random point of the night, and this was like almost towards closing, for some reason, this waitress ends up running to the back of the restaurant, running to where I was at and saying, Bubba, can I like stay back here, please? I remember I look at her and say, why, what's wrong? Is everything all right? And then she ends up saying, no, I think like my boyfriend's like watching me or like following me. I have no idea, but like he's literally here and I don't know where he is though. I ended up asking her, why would your boyfriend follow you? That sounds really weird. And also, you have a boyfriend and you're flirting with me? Is what I said. And that's when I started to kind of like understand that like, she started telling me how he was really weird and how his job keeps him really uptight and that, he was just being a weird guy and just wanted to move on. Honestly, girls really usually sometimes have a good reason for things, but she is not really one of them. But I basically told her it's okay, just stay with me, because I didn't know if this was like an actual guy that would actually hurt her physically, because physical abuse is it's a whole different conversation there. And then I ended up saying, okay, just chill back here. If anything happens, I'll just call the manager. I'll just take care of the rest of your tables and everything, because I did have waitressing experience to know how to take care of tables. Anyways, we ended up going through that with the night, and basically afterwards, I remember when the night was closing and it was basically time to end everything, I basically started cleaning up the kitchen. She ended up cleaning up the front, and me and her, we decided to take a break and go to the back of the restaurant. If you guys don't know, at the back of every restaurant, there's like a door that can open and you can basically take breaks there, relax, pull out a chair. And I remember the waitress that I was working with, she vapes. So, as gross as it is being a vapor, she was vaping in front of me as I was eating my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I remember as I was eating my sandwich and she was vaping a fat cloud over my face, I remember she told me how basically this whole thing between her and her boyfriend's been hard and how he's really uptight and all this stuff over and over again. It got to the point where basically it was old news. But then afterwards, I remember basically as we were just sitting there and I stood up about to tell her something, I told her the secret words that most girls want to hear. Well, like, honestly, just move on. Do what you want to do best. You know yourself better than anyone. I gave her that like motivational speech that every girl enjoys to hear after, they go through a hard situation. Because girls, when they're most vulnerable, it seems like you could literally tell them anything and they would love you. And then afterwards, I remember this girl, after I said that, she ended up coming up to me and literally started making out with me in the back of the restaurant with work clothes on and her mouth tasting like watermelons because of her vape. I have no idea. I found vaping disgusting, by the way. Don't vape, guys. And then basically, I remember after when that was happening, she literally started like, flirting with me even more and more, and we kept making out the back of the restaurant, even though we still had to close it down. But then right as it was happening, I ended up seeing a car pull up to the back of the restaurant out of nowhere. And I start panicking. I'm like, oh, who's this? Is this like the manager or something? No, it was literally my keyboarding teacher coming out of his car and saying, wait, what? Are you serious? You're cheating on me with my student? Wait, what is what I said? And then afterwards, I realized it was him, and the girl ended up looking at me saying, what do you mean he's your student? He's literally like 21. I'm not actually 21 is what I told her right after. I'm like, actually, I'm like 17. She ends up looking at me all like freaked out. And then afterwards, I remember my teacher ends up saying, so this is what you're going to see me with? This is what you're trying to do? I don't know. He started basically freaking out and crying. And I remember basically they had a whole situation. And basically the girl ended up calling the cops saying how her boyfriend was harassing her and ended up leaving. And after the whole situation happened, I had to give a statement of what happened and like, the whole situation. And then afterwards, I went inside the restaurant, started closing it down, and I started to realize one thing. This was my keyboarding teacher that just got arrested in front of me. Are you serious right now? Anyways, afterwards, I remember I realized that the waitress ended up blocking me on Snapchat, which I mean, I don't blame her because she only worked like a week after and ended up getting fired. And then after that, I remember the next day when I went to school after the whole situation, my keyboarding teacher wasn't there until 2 weeks later. And 2 weeks later, when he saw me in the hallway, he came up to me and said, hey, Bubba, I'm not going to take your advice ever again, but please just don't talk to her anymore. And ended up walking away. He wasn't my keyboarding teacher anymore because he ended up leaving the school for personal reasons. Or I just think it's because he got a criminal record, but who knows? And this girl had the audacity to say to me, well, I mean, like, you have a bigger sub count, so like, you're way better off than he is. And also, like, I've always kind of had an interest in you anyway. I just wasn't sure if you're able to keep up. Keep up with what? Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another really sad, but honestly super embarrassing story. So this story takes place 3 years ago. 3 years ago is when I started basically making content and started streaming and becoming a content creator that you guys all know today. And I want to say it was the year 2021 when I initially blew up on the internet. But before I blew up, obviously, I ended up learning how to become a YouTuber and everything and how to become a social media creator through other YouTubers that I knew. Now, I'm not going to say what YouTubers are in this story, by the way, because obviously I don't want them to, you know, basically get in trouble or basically get any hate or embarrassment from this video. But I'll say this much. I was friends with a YouTuber that was actually pretty big in size at the time. I remember he was around like, I want to say 300,000 subscribers, and me, I was only at like less than like 50,000. Like I was a very small creator. Well, 50,000 people is still a lot of people, but I was very small compared to him. And I remember every time me and this guy would like basically have conversations and hang out, he would always basically teach me on like how to become a better creator and how to basically like, you know, do better on YouTube. Honestly, to this day, I still appreciate him, and shout out to you if you're watching this video. I'm not going to say your name, obviously, because, well, this story is pretty sad for you, but I will say this, he was a genuine dude. But I remember me and him one time, me and him decided to basically go to a bar and basically hang out with each other and have a good time with each other other than talk about work. But while he was doing this, I remember me, as I got to the bar and started sitting down waiting for him, out of nowhere, I see him walk in with a girl. And when I saw this, at first I didn't really know what to think. I was thinking, oh, you know what? Like I should have brought a date so it's not going to be awkward. But then when they came and sat at the table, I realized that this girl, she was actually like pretty nice and genuine at first. She was really kind to me and she was nice to me as well. And me and my friend, when we would talk about work and stuff, she would kind of like understand it to a certain point. In a way, I saw them more as like a couple that was also teaching each other how to be better creators. And I thought this was really cute and obviously like a dream of mine to have, because, well, I mean, to be fair, I have a crush on a ton of other YouTubers and creators, but I'm not going to say who, because, well, that would be just embarrassing. And also, I don't want you guys exposed to me like that. But I will say this, it was really cool to see them, you know, basically be together. And well, even though I was still third wheeling, I remember out of nowhere, I ended up basically getting asked by this girl, oh wait, so Bubba, are you like new to like making videos and stuff? No, I always wanted to be a creator, but like, you know, I'm just, I guess, learning. I'm still growing and stuff, you know, just kind of getting into it. Oh, well, it's a good thing you have my boyfriend around. He's actually one of the biggest creators here. I mean, yeah, I know that, we're friends. And at this point, it started to really sound like that she only cared more about his following than actually him. And the reason I say this is because she would always call him by his alias and not by his actual name, which is really awkward in my opinion. So I didn't really know what to think from there. But I remember after a while, she ended up getting up and going to the bathroom. And when she went to the bathroom, I looked at my homie and said, yo, so question, where'd you meet this girl? Oh, I met her online. Like, she was actually a really nice girl. I met her over Tinder. And like, yeah, me and her kind of just clicked instantly. You guys clicked instantly, like right away? Yeah, dude, like I don't know why, she had a big interest in me right off the bat, and honestly I really like her. She's always there for me and always like, you know, being really supportive. At this point I didn't really know what to think, and then I started to realize that there was a lot of things he forgot to include in his story, but obviously we'll get to that later, because what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was really weird. Because I remember when me and my friend were like, you know, drinking and having a good time and basically all hanging out together, this girl out of nowhere, in the middle of us talking, decides to interrupt and say, oh Bubba, I'm just curious, like, how much do you make? Wait, what? Like, how much money do you make? Like, do you make as much as my boyfriend? At this point, I didn't know why she asked me how much do I make. And I'm gonna say this right now to any person out there, it's very rude to ask how much YouTubers really make, or how much any man makes in that case. It's kind of just like asking a girl's weight. It's just not right to say. And honestly, I didn't answer the question. All I said is, oh, like, I make enough, I guess. I don't know. And she kind of looked at me with a really snarky look and kind of just ended up looking away afterwards. After that moment, I always got a bad vibe off her. And well, what ends up happening next, I gotta say, was even worse. Because I remember the next day comes around, and basically me and my friend, we ended up basically talking over Discord about, you know, types of content we want to do. And I remember he gave me the really great idea to basically start, you know, doing story times, because, well, I always like, you know, was telling a bunch of stories to him about all my dumb stuff I did back in high school. And he told me to just do it and try it out and see where it goes. So that's what I did. I ended up basically telling a story, and well, thanks to you guys watching this video, you guys ended up blowing it up. Like, you guys blew it up to the point where I ended up having 90,000 followers, growing all the way up to over 1 million followers on TikTok. I should probably make sure I let you guys know, we still did not hit 1 million on YouTube yet, but if you guys manage to subscribe, maybe we will sooner. But basically, I ended up going through a big blow up phase that month, and I remember my friend and me were super excited with each other, but obviously he wasn't the only one that was excited. His girlfriend was also really excited that I was blowing up, and ever since she saw that my numbers were growing, she would always DM me, call me, and try to get my attention through social media. Now at this point, I didn't really really interact with her because obviously she was dating my friend that was a YouTuber as well. Like, I'm not gonna interact with a girl that's basically taken, because obviously that would be very rude of me. But clearly this girl did not care that she was taken. The only thing she cared about was basically having the attention from me that she wanted. It got to the point where I remember she ended up basically calling me on my actual cell phone number, which I never gave her, by the way, but she ended up calling me and I answered the phone since I didn't recognize the number. I remember when I answered the phone, I ended up saying, hello, who's this? Hey, Baba, it's me. I don't know if you remember, but like, you know, like my boyfriend. Oh, hey, like what's going on? How'd you get my number? Oh, I ended up asking him for it. I just wanted to ask, like, what you up to tomorrow? Just working. Wait, why? Oh, well, like, I was wondering if we could like hang out. Like, you can like teach me some things. I mean, sure. Like, I'm down to like hang out as like the three of us, me, you, and your boyfriend. Oh, my boyfriend's busy tomorrow, but he's totally cool with us hanging out. So like, you down? At this point, when she said her boyfriend was okay with it, I ended up saying sure, because obviously, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't really have much of a social life after you guys blew me up on the internet. So I ended up basically saying sure, and the next day I ended up actually getting inside of my car and I drove down to her to go hang out with her. We ended up meeting up at the mall, and me and her, we started basically going for a walk around the mall and basically window shopping. And as we were window shopping, I am not joking, this girl was glazing the entire time. Like, I am not joking. She kept telling me how attractive I was. She kept telling me that she knew I would make it in content creation, and she was just glazing to the point where it was actually really unattractive. I remember I was super annoyed and just super weirded out by how much she was like basically like, you know, talking to me and kind of flirting with me, and I felt very wrong with even being there. But she said that her boyfriend was okay with her hanging out with me, so I don't really know who was in the wrong there. But then what ends up happening next, I gotta say, really made things a lot worse for me, because I remember 30 minutes in me hanging out with this girl, I ended up basically going to a store that had jewelry in it. Now, if you guys don't know, I like chains. I don't have a chain, and I always wanted to get like a nice gold chain for myself, just for the fun of it. Nothing, you know, to flex on other people, just for myself. So I remember I ended up basically window shopping at a store where they sold jewelry. And as I'm looking at this gold chain, I remember this girl ends up saying, OMG, Baba, you should try it on. I mean, sure, why not? So I ended up basically asking the person to try it on, and she ended up passing it to me, but obviously I couldn't put the chain on by myself. So this girl, she ends up basically getting the chain, and she ends up putting it on me as she's standing right behind me. But right as she was in the middle of putting it on me, her boyfriend comes out of nowhere, the friend that was a YouTuber as well, and he saw that I was hanging out with her. He walks up to me right away and says, yo, Bubba, why are you hanging out with my girl, bro? Wait, what? I thought you were cool with it. You hanging out with my girl alone? Since when would I be cool with that? Wait, what do you mean? She said you were cool with it. And at this moment, this girl ended up freezing and not saying anything. She was basically caught red-handed. And at this point, I was really like weirded out, and I didn't really know what to say. But then my homie ends up saying, babe, can I talk to you for a minute? And him and his girlfriend end up going to another part of the mall while I was left alone by myself. Now, I didn't hear the conversation that they had, but I will say this, I ended up kind of viewing from a distance what was going on. And well, one thing led to another. First, they were having a basic conversation, and then the girl ends up crying. And when a girl cries, usually something bad emotionally happened. But she started crying, and he ended up walking away angry, and that's when she came up to me and said, Baba, he broke up with me. And she starts tearing and crying to the point where I didn't know what to do. So me and her, we end up going back to my car, and at that point, I was just thinking about dropping her off home just so I don't have to, you know, get in the way of this altercation that just happened. But then she looks at me as we're on the way to her house, and she says, Baba, can I go back to your place, please? I mean, sure, why not? So I ended up taking her back to my place, thinking that would make her feel better. But right as we get to my place, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, me and her, we ended up jumping straight into doing the Devil's Tango, which was really a bad idea. Because I remember as me and her were like laying in bed after, not wearing anything, I ended up getting a text message from my homie, and he ends up saying, yo, Bubba, I'm not gonna lie, bro. I don't know what happened between you and my girl, but I realized that she was a clout chaser. So like, make sure you stay away from her, bro. And right as I get this message, I'm literally laying down right beside her after doing the Devil's Tango. And I looked at her while putting my phone down and said, yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't think this is gonna work out. I don't really think me and you should, you know, be doing this ever again. But I mean, like, you're hot. She ends up getting up all upset, and she ended up saying, all you YouTubers with your massive ego think you guys are so famous you can just do whatever you want. Well, you know what? You're dumb. And she ends up leaving. It was really sad for her to say that, but at the same time, was this girl a clout chaser or a gold digger? Because at this point, I couldn't tell the difference. So bullying is a really big deal, and honestly, getting bullied sucks. I should know because I used to get bullied back when I was in middle school. No, I wasn't getting bullied at school, but I was getting bullied online, and it really sucked. And this story story is how I got revenge on my Xbox bully. But before I do get into the story, I want you guys to make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And as we speak right now, I am live streaming live on my Bubba Gaming channel, telling you guys more crazy stories like this one. Also, I'm with my Fortnite girlfriend, so that's a flex and a half. Also, just a reminder, I am the hottest guy in the world, so if you guys don't follow me on Instagram, you guys will get bad dreams at night, and you guys will never pull a girl in your life. Or a guy if you're a girl. Anyways, let's get straight into this crazy, insane story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place when I was back in middle school. And back when I was in middle school, I was a pretty simple kid. The only thing I really focused on was my middle school crush, my Xbox, and basically playing video games and pretending to be the next Sky Does Minecraft. If you guys don't know who that is, then I'll tell you this right now, you guys did not live the best childhood on the internet. But going on with the story, I remember basically one time I was in my classroom basically watching Sky Does Minecraft. I really loved Minecraft at the time, and it was one of my favorite games ever. And knowing that I get to play it every day nowadays and use it for content, it's awesome. But back when I was in middle school, I only played it by myself, and we still had Minecraft Pocket Edition becoming a big deal. Minecraft used to be on an iPhone or on a phone, I guess. I don't know if it still is, but that's what I used to play on all the time back when I was in middle school. And then out of nowhere, I remember one time my friend came up to me saying, yo, bro, like I'm playing Call of Duty with like some of the best people, bro. Like you gotta get off Minecraft and start hopping on Call of Duty again, bro. Like seriously, we need you for the carry. I'm not gonna lie, I was really good at playing Call of Duty, but for some reason I liked Minecraft a bit more. But anyways, going on, I remember I told him, oh yeah, sure, like I'm down. I'll play Call of Duty tonight, knowing that he really wanted a good team together and basically play. So I remember when I got home, I hopped on my Xbox, and as we all know, Xbox has Xbox Live, and I started playing Xbox with all my friends. Well, almost all my friends. What I mean by that is basically my friend wanted to assemble a really good team, so he started getting people that weren't in my school and lived like really far away. Like we had a guy that lived like basically across the country from us playing with us. And I remember there was one other guy on our team who was really, really rude. I think he was from Chicago or something. And I remember this guy would literally hop on our Xbox game party and make fun of my name all the time. My old username on my Xbox, you guys can laugh about it now because it's kind of funny, but my name used to be Persian Guy Gamer. Literally Persian Guy Gamer. Because I was Persian, I'm a guy, and also I'm a gamer. Yeah, not really creative, I know, but going on with the story, I remember he used to always make fun of me and basically say funny names to me all the time, and it really sucked. And I remember one time he ended up saying on Xbox, yo guys, I'm gonna quickly go to the bathroom. Don't be such a loser, Bubba. And walks away. And basically from there, I remember I was kind of just sitting there talking to my friend about school life and everything because we went to the same school. And knowing there was only 3 of us in the party, well, I mean, he was gone, so we started talking about some personal stuff. For example, my crush, my middle school crush that, well, I talk about this channel once in a while. I remember he kept telling me, yo, bro, just go for your middle school crush, man. Like, dude, just go for it, bro. Like, you never know. Maybe she'll say yes and want to go on a date with you. It's really weird how you don't talk to her and stuff. And then right as I was gonna reply to him saying I could not do that to her because I don't have the guts, instantly my Xbox bully hops on saying, yo, what? You got a middle school crush, bro? Yo, tell me her name, bro. No way. What's her name? And I didn't want to tell him anything, but then my friend ended up telling him basically everything. And at first he was giving good advice, but then he was just making fun of me left and right. He literally said, oh, bro, like, wait, what's her Instagram? What does she look like? And I didn't want to tell him what her Instagram was because I knew it was going to get me in a lot of trouble. So I didn't say anything. But once I went to school the next day, I remember I went to school and basically I remember my middle school crush walked up to me saying, hey, Bubba, do you follow this guy on Instagram? She shows me her phone and it was literally him, my Xbox bully. And I told him, oh yeah, like I played with him on Xbox. We played Call of Duty together because I didn't want to say anything bad about him. And basically I remember my middle school crush says, oh, like he's kind of cute. And it walks away from me. My heart sank. You guys have no idea how much it hurt knowing that my middle school crush was falling in love with a bully that bullies me on Xbox, bro. My cyber bully. And me, the guy who actually likes her and actually cares about her, is getting denied by her. Like, what? I remember it really sucked, but honestly, one thing I realized is that it's always the girl's choice on what they want to go for. So in no way do I have a say on what she can or cannot do. But I remember I ended up going home that day and hopping on Xbox. And I remember when I was in my Xbox party alone waiting for my friend, he ends up joining. He joins the party saying, yo, bro, your middle school crush is actually kind of fine, bro. Like, I'm a slide, bro. Like, you got no chance with her anymore, bro. And I told him, bro, just stay away from her. Like, you live across the country. Like, what are you gonna do anyway? Like, it's not like you're gonna come here or anything. And then he said, oh, I don't have to go to her. She could just come to me. What is what I said? Why would she ever do that? Then he says, bro, because I'm a flyer over here. Bro, we're in middle school. Like, you gotta understand, when this guy was explaining this stuff, it was so baloney. But at the same time, I was in middle school. I didn't really know what to believe at the time. So I remember I believed almost everything he said. And it was so embarrassing because I remember I started crying over my Xbox with my headset on, with my head down as I was sitting on my bed bed and just basically crying. He heard me crying and he's like, bro, what's wrong? You gonna cry about it? You big loser. What are you gonna do about it? So knowing that he said that, I remember I got off my Xbox. I laid in my bed and cried all night, basically, knowing that my middle school crush was falling in love with, well, the bully. But honestly, I realized the next morning when I woke up and went to school, I realized that my middle school crush was always on her phone texting, well, my cyber bully, my Xbox bully. She kept texting him over and over, and it was so weird. So I remember I developed a master plan. Now, don't say how I did this, because let's just say it took a lot of FBI research, aka I am not a part of the FBI, but I can say I definitely felt like one when I was doing this. I remember I went on my phone, went on Instagram, and basically tried to find out who this guy was and who he liked, until I realized something. When I went on his following, I saw this profile picture that looked similar to him, and I clicked on the photo, but it wasn't his Instagram page. It was his girlfriend's. He had a girlfriend and he was hitting up my middle school crush. I remember I was choked. I was so mad and I was so angry that I knew I had to get revenge. So what I ended up doing was I ended up messaging her. I messaged her saying, hey, I play Xbox with your boyfriend and I was just curious, like, are you like his side thing? She was so confused when she messaged me back. She's like, what'd you just call me? Did you just call me a side thing? Oh, you call me right now. So I ended up calling her, and basically when I called her at school, I remember she basically was yelling at me over the phone, telling me to explain. And basically all I did was screenshot my middle school crush's profile picture and sent it over saying, oh, I thought this was his girlfriend. She was so confused because she had no idea who that was. So I remember, like, not even less than 10 minutes later, my middle school crush walks up to me saying, Bubba, your friend on Xbox is a little loser, and honestly, he's such a big, like, honestly, no one likes him, and walked away from me. At that moment, I knew my mission was accomplished. Well, almost. Let's just say what ended up happening later on throughout the day was I remember I was in my next class and I had my phone vibrate over and over. It was my Xbox bully. He was messaging me over and over and calling me. So I remember I got my phone, I asked to go to the bathroom, and I went outside. And when I did, I answered the phone call saying, yo, bro, like, what's going on? He said, Bubba, I know what you did, you little butt. I'm gonna come after you and murder you. Huh? Is what I said. And he's like, yeah, like, you think you're ever gonna play with us again? You're banned out of every Xbox party, bro. No one likes you. You're a snake. You were cheating on your girl, is what I said to him. And then he ended up hanging up. Remember when I got home, let's just say I wasn't allowed to be joining the Xbox party and they locked me out of it. But one thing I can say was that after that day, I remember I started texting my middle school crush and I actually ended up landing a date with her. I guess not all things end really bad, but at the same time, guys, if you guys are getting bullied, hey, who knows? Maybe do some research to get them back. Or just be a good person and just not do anything at all. I mean, I don't know. I was in middle school. I wanted revenge, so I got what I wanted. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's video. Make sure you do leave a like and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. And as well as on top of that, like I said earlier, I'm live streaming right now on YouTube and on Twitch. So make sure you guys do follow me on there. And like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. All right, peace out, guys.
My name is Bubba. I'm still on top of the world. Never taken with your mother. Of course, let's go. Should I make it a story?